morning, yogis. Let's begin on our backs. We'll start in constructive rest with our knees bent or feet on the earth. And make sure you have your strap available, that you can reach it. So just take a moment to land here. Connecting your feet, the back of your pelvis, your upper back, your arms, the back of your head to the mat. And just land here in this moment. And breathe. Allow your breath to be smooth and easy, full and deep. Maybe you could deepen each inhale and extend each exhale. So today's practice is going to be a little focused on our feet. Our feet help us with so much, and we kind of barely pay attention to them, as I always say. So we'll focus on the movements of the feet, really connecting our feet to the earth, and noticing how, once we have a little more awareness around our feet, how it affects our balance and how it affects our standing poses. All right, so that's what we're going to work on today. And we'll carry on a few elements of, outer hip engagement and a little bit of a warrior three, as we did last week, to kind of continue that through. But to get moving, let's start with some spinal mobility, some supine cat-cows, so you can keep your arms wherever they are, by the side or resting on your belly or out like a T. And then on an inhale, send your tailbone up towards the sky. And then exhale, curl the tailbone down. Or you can reverse that breath if that feels better for you. Maybe it's inhaling when your tailbone draws down and you arch the spine, and then exhaling as it comes up. So just linking the movement with your breath in the way that feels natural for you. So a few more rounds like this. And the next time the tailbone goes up to the sky and you're pressing your low back down, just give a little extra tone to the belly. Linger there for a moment, and then come back to neutral. Widen your feet, mat width apart. Keep the left knee up towards the sky and just drop that right knee to the midline or towards the inseam of your left foot. And then bring it back up. You can even let it drop out a little bit. So just doing a little internal rotation on that one half of your pelvis, just to get some movement in the body. Just do that a few times. You can even hold it if that feels really nice for you, getting a little stretch in the psoas and the flexor area. Only going as far as you're able. Maybe you're kind of noticing that you're rolling over your feet. And notice how that feels. And maybe one more time or so. And then we'll bring that knee up towards the sky, plant the foot, and do the other side. Just go back and forth like that. This is a really good warm up for the hips, and to notice, how your pelvis feels. Noticing the mobility between the two halves of the pelvis and the sacral region. There should be some independent movement there, but sometimes it gets a little stuck. So notice a couple more times on this side. Even holding if you like. And then bring that leg back up to the sky. You can still keep your feet wide, but bring your arms out like a T and let both knees now drop to the right and then to the left. And if you like, you could add rotation with your neck. So as your knees go to the right, roll over the back of your skull and look over to the left. And then in the other direction, again, flowing with breath and feeling this nice gentle rotation throughout the body. Nice gentle rotation on your spine. Maybe even holding in one direction. So now when your knees go to the right, you can hold to the left. Or gaze to the left and hold. And then through center in the other direction. And hold breath or two. And then come back through center. Back up through center. Pause and notice. And then let's release our arms by our sides. Extend your legs one at a time. Bring them back to hip width. That's why you're Supta Tadasana for a moment. Maybe you can find nice dorsiflexion of your feet where the heels draw down, the toes point up. That way, maybe you'll find some engagement of the legs, a little tone and firmness to the belly. Good. And then you can sweep your arm. You can leave your arms by your side. We're going to do a Supta Ardha Chandrasana, so a little side bending here. Or you could send them up to the sky. And then walk your legs over to the right. Lift your chest up a little bit and walk your shoulder blades over to the right. Keep the left side body down. Don't let it roll up. So you're just, making like a banana shape to the right. A nice arc to the body. Go as far over as feels comfortable for you. And if you want to deepen it, you could take that right hand, take hold of the left wrist, give it a gentle tug. And you could even take the left foot and bring it over the right ankle and deepen that stretch. But again, keep drawing that left hip down. So you're sort of, spinning your heart up to the sky. And just taking a nice side stretch to the right. As you're doing that, breathe a little bit more to the left side body, like into the left lung. More than the right, and feel that. Take one more breath. And then you can start to release the grip or the cross of the legs. You can start to walk the legs and the torso back to center. And then you can take a pause, take a moment to notice, maybe even releasing your arms down a tiny bit to relax the shoulders. Just integrate. We always want to integrate before we go right to the next side so we can move with greater awareness. Notice what is on that side. Now, when you're ready in your own time, you can go to the left side, which might be different. Maybe you'll keep your arms by your side this time, or maybe you'll extend this time. Maybe you'll do it the same way. So walking legs over, lifting chest and walking it over. Maybe holding on to the right arm. Even holding on to elbows. That feels nice too. And then maybe the right ankle crosses over the left. Breathing into the right side body. From your fingertips or your elbow or the crown of your head all the way to the heel. And then take one more breath. On the next exhale, let's start to release and walk the legs and the torso back to center. Releasing your arms and pause and notice. All right. So now let's start to work on the feet and get a nice stretch in our hamstrings. So it's always good to get a stretch. So let's do our Supta Padangusasana. So take your strap and bring your foot up. So you can bend the knee, bring the foot up, and put the strap on the heel and extend the leg to the sky. Right. And really, keep that strap on the heel. And then we're going to add, and I'll actually just hold here for a moment. Just feel that nice stretch in the hamstring. You're grounding the left leg down. Relax your shoulders down towards the earth. Maybe you're going to bend the elbows and pull the elbows down. Just allow a little lengthening in the back of your leg. Now let's flex our foot. So let's, pulling on that, really having the heel stable in the strap. Draw your toes down so that the heel is a little higher than your toes. See if you can do that as much as you're able to. Don't worry. Just, but maybe challenge a little. So really extend the heel and draw the toes down. Dorsiflexion. And then, without this strap gliding off the heel, point the foot into plantar flexion. So now the toes are higher than the heel. And feeling the stretch in the top of the foot, the front of the leg, the ankle opening, just noticing. And go back and forth like that a few more times. And a nice stretch of the calf muscles, the muscles that extend into the Achilles tendon to the heel, and then plantar flex. Noticing where you feel that. Maybe the top of the foot toward the toes. Maybe your quad, the front of your shin. One more time, each direction. Really drawing the toes down as best you can and lifting the heel. And then one more time, plantar foot. Now bring the leg back to dorsiflexion, but not your strongest dorsiflexion. Just a nice moderate where the front of the leg's engaged, the heel is a little lifted higher than the toes. Now let's work on flexion in the toes. So if you can, let's extend the big toe. So send the big toe higher than the little toes. You're like, what? I know, pointing, and then switch, then keep the big toe down and send the pinky toes, or I'm sorry, all 4 toes up to the sky into flexion. And then switch. Big toe goes into flexion, or extension rather, sorry, and the 4 toes come into flexion as they come forward. And then switch. And notice that. Notice how that feels. So you're really pressing through the pads of the toes to do that, through the ball of the foot, and then switch one more time. Notice how this feels, and maybe you do it one more time. Notice how it feels on all the muscles on the outside of the foot when you extend the 4 toes. And then notice how it feels on those muscles on the inseam of the foot as you extend the big toe. And we'll do this while we're standing later. So let's release that. And you can slowly lower the right leg down. So we'll do that later as a way to become aware of, how we stand. Are we really spreading our toes wide? Are we really connecting the toes to the earth? Do we tend to, pronate or supinate, roll our foot in one direction? It'll just be interesting to see, I think. So let's do the same thing on the left side. So first, get the strap on the heel, lift that leg to sky, right over your hips perhaps, and feel that nice stretch in the hamstring for starters. Keeping the knee soft if you need. maybe the leg doesn't lift this high, maybe it kind of comes at some angle, and that's fine too. Doesn't matter. But just first get that nice stretch. Again, drawing the elbows down so you're nice and broad across your chest. Great. Okay. So now let's add the flexion and extension. So draw the toes down and the heel lifts. And then plantar flex the foot. So lifting the toes. And then again, toes down, heel lifts. Feel that nice stretch through the calf. Up into the Achilles tendon, perhaps. And then plantar. And then dorsey. Okay, maybe we're doing that one more time. And then come back to that gentle dorsiflexion. And now toes. So again, our toes are flexed right now, but then extend just your big toe. So send that one up to the sky. And then flex the big toe and extend the 4 toes and send them up to the sky. Oops, it's really tricky, right? Is one foot maybe more cooperative than the other? One set of toes more cooperative? I noticed mine had just a moment. And then switch. And again, noticing where you're feeling that. One more round. And then you come back to neutral. Actually, even before we, lower it down. We'll do this on the ground. Nice. So back to your Supta Tadasana. Dorsiflex your feet gently. And then just feel that you're trying to spread your toes apart. So you're broadening across the whole base of your foot. So just feel that. Get broad across the feet when you spread the toes. Spread the big toe from the other 4 toes. This is really good too if you have bunions, because that big toe wants to kind of draw in and maybe tuck under or over. So you could always, practice this, even take the heel of your foot in between the big toe and the other 4 toes to get a nice stretch there. So that might be something that might be useful for you. So just kind of maybe notice that. You make sure if you do that, it's a big stretch actually. Make sure your skin is really moisturized before you do that. That's a big stretch even for the skin. So let's pause with that, and you can bend your knees again. We're going to roll over onto our belly. We'll rise up into a child's pose. Just kind of go into a child's pose now for a moment. Sitting here, getting a nice stretch in the tops of your feet, a nice stretch in the back body, landing here. Just for a couple of breaths in this nice forward fold. Returning inward, noticing how you're feeling after those warm-ups, what kind of new awarenesses were brought to you. And then when you're ready, we can rise up into an Uttanasana. So you curl your toes under and roll over your feet. Or you can come up through a half lunge, come into your half fold, rising up, half lift, or your full fold, half fold, and then go back into your fold, bend your knees, and you can rise up, arms overhead, and then by your side, Samastitihi. Take a moment and notice. Notice your feet. You can look down at your feet. See if you can spread your toes wide, just like we did before in that supine position, and feel a nice grounding of your feet. Do that little exercise where we keep the big toes down and just lift your 4 toes. Notice how that feels. Or your 8 toes. Lower the 8 toes, lift just the big toes. Notice how that feels. Do that a few times and notice, do you tend to really pronate or supinate? Can you do this little drill without rolling to the outside edge or the inside edge of your feet? Yes? Because that's what happens in life. A lot of times, especially if those of us with super high arches, our ankles kind of drop in. So we want to really bring awareness to grounding through the, I sometimes say 3 points or the 4 points of each foot, and keeping them nice and even. It might help if you use your fingers. And then pause and notice. All right, so we'll do that a couple of times in standing poses just to see if we can track down maybe, even a habitual way of maybe we do collapse in, maybe we do roll out, maybe you're not fully grounded. So we'll just do it as a way to notice. And of course, in our balance poses. So let's come to the top of our mat space. Find your Tadasana, connecting feet to the earth. Maybe think about not only the 4 points of the feet grounding, the big toe mounds, pinky toe mounds, heels, arches lifting, maybe even, all of the pads of your toes are grounded or connected. And then from that grounded point, lift out of it. So lifting, engaging the legs, lifting up from the belly, lifting the pelvic floor. Bring the shoulders up, back, and down, lengthen through the crown of your head. Take a big inhale, sun breath, arms wide to the side, get long, extend if you like, and even lift your gaze. Exhale, hands through prayer or swan dive into your forward fold. Take a half lift, and then exhale and fold. Walk back into your dog pose or puppy pose. But if you can do dog pose, that would be great. Even if you keep your head lifted. So we're grounding our hands. Lifting hips to sky, head lifted or between your arms. Keep lifting the hips and engage your belly. Now lift all 10 toes and draw the heels back. See if the heels can descend. So how does this feel when you lift your toes? Maybe it engages the front of the legs a little bit more, lengthens the back of the legs. How does that feel? So we're essentially in dorsiflexion here. So anytime you're doing your down dog, you are doing your dorsiflexion. And now we're even flexing our toes. Take one more breath. Good. Let's come forward. Let's go into a chaturanga, and we're going to go into our cobra pose. So go into your chaturanga. You could lower your knees down if you like, and do knees, chest, chin, or you can slowly lower down. Come onto the belly, however you get there. Uncurl your toes. Plant the tops of your feet. Good. Now let's do a few little cobras just to warm up. So peeling the heart, looping the shoulders down the back, pressing the tops of the feet down, the pelvis down. Exhale, lower down. A few times like that. And again, inhale, peeling up, looping up. Now stay here, broad across your collarbones. Grounding through the tops of your feet. Feel your implantar flexion now. You can deepen it if you like by coming up to a king cobra, extending the arms, maybe coming onto the tops of your feet into your upward facing dog. Breathing here. Trying not to let the feet roll out or in. Good. One more breath. And then we're going to press back to down dog. So you can roll over your feet if you like, or you can press back through hands and knees and come back to your dog pose. Good job. All right, so here we are again in dog or puppy. or a modified dog with your head lifted. Good. Lift your toes once again, extend the heels. Engage the belly. Take one more breath here. And then you can, you can lower the toes back down. We're going to come up into a lunge. So if you can, the invitation is to do a three-legged dog, if that feels okay for you. If not, you just can bring that right leg forward. But if you like, you can lift the leg to the sky, bend the knee around the spine, draw the nose to the knee. Even if your knee was down, you can bring your nose to your knee. So let's do that a couple of times. Go back to your three-legged dog or your tabletop with your leg extended. Come forward into like a high plank or a modified plank, nose to knee, or tabletop rather. I'll show you one time. If my knee was down, I'd be doing it here. I'd sort of be in our sunbird, even lifting my heart and gaze. And then exhale, nose to knee. Okay. And then everybody, wherever you are, plant that foot down onto the earth. Good. All right. Nice. So here we are in our low lunge. Knee over the ankle, back leg engaged. Let's rise up into a warrior one pose and breathe. Good. So you can keep your hand on your knee for a little more stability. Your hands can be on your hips or to sky. Square the hips, engage the back leg. And then for a moment, let's just explore the toes. Keep the big toe down, lift the four toes. Lower the four toes, lift the big toe. I notice I spread my fingers wide when I do this. I think it helps, so try that. And then one more time, switch. Big toe down, four toes lift. This might be challenging your balance. Notice how it affects your balance. And then lower the toes, lift the big toe. Now all toes down, nice and stable. So I noticed I was kind of rolling in when I was doing that, right? So let's see how we could avoid that and also bring more engagement to the outer hips like we did last week. So lower the left hand to the inside of that right knee. Press against the knee, the hand presses against the knee, knee against the hand. Feel your outer hips fire up. Maybe your hamstrings fire up. Lower the right hand to the outside of the right knee, left arm to sky, and feel that resistance. Again, feel the outer hip firing up. Maybe before you felt the inner thigh firing up. Just feel there's more stability and awareness around the muscles. Good. Release your arms to the sky. Good. Straighten your right leg. Let that left heel ground. Ooh, good, if you can. This is my sensitive ankle, so it's a big deal to do that for me right now. Nice work. Good. Bring your hands onto your hips. Square the right hip back, left hip forward. And hinge forward. Good, and breathe. Take one more breath. Getting long through your torso. Bend your right knee. Lower your hands to that foot. Good. And then send that right leg back to meet the left. Back into your full or modified plank pose. Lower down, knees, chest, chin, chaturanga. Cobra, king cobra, upward facing dog. Downward facing dog. And pause here. Maybe even practicing lifting the toes. Extending through the heels. And then when you're ready, we'll do a couple of those knees to nose, and you can have your knees down in tabletop if you like. But in your three-legged dog, you might lift that leg to sky, come forward to the high plank, round the spine, bend the knee, nose to knee, engaging core here, and extend it back up. And then come forward, nose to knee, and extend. And then bend, nose to knee. One more time. This next time we'll float the foot all the way up to the sky, all the way forward between the hands. Good. Find your low lunge, your untented fingers. Rise up, hands on your thigh or up to the sky. Good. Engage the back leg. Engage your outer hips. Tone your belly. And then explore your feet. The 4 toes down, big toes lift. Big toe down, all toes lift. 4 toes lift. And switch a couple of times, extending the big toe up to the sky, then lowering or flexing the big toe and extending the 4 toes. Notice if you start to roll, supinate or pronate the foot. See if you can avoid that. One more time, lower the toes, and then lower right hand to the inside of the left knee. Press the knee against the hand, hand against the knee. Feel the inner thigh fire up. Feel a nice stability in your feet. You're not rolling to one side or the other. And switch. Hands left side to the outside of the left knee. And activate your outer hips, just like we did in our outer hip sequence last week, our glute sequence. Good. Rise, arms back up to the sky. Take a moment here. Even lift your gaze at your hands. And then rise up, straighten the leg, bring your gaze forward. You can bring your hands onto your hips or at heart center. Maybe step in with the back leg and see if you can extend that back heel. Can you get that heel grounded? Draw the left hip back. Hinge forward. Lengthen from hips to crown of head. Take one more breath. And then soften the front knee. Hands come onto the earth, and then just step your right foot to meet your left, back in your Uttanasana. And from here, with your hands on the earth, lift all 8 toes up, ground big toes down. Lower your 8 toes, lift the big toes. Notice now how you can really see closely what's happening in your feet. Switch a couple of times like that. Give them some help if you need. Good. One more round. Back in your Uttanasana. Rise up, Ardha Uttanasana. Back into Uttanasana. Bend your knees, belly on your thighs. Strong legs rise you up, arms wide to the side. And then Samastitihi. Good. All right. Nice. Let's do a little balance break now that we're kind of ready here. And then we'll do a second wave of standing poses. So you might want to have a wall kind of handy in case you feel a little balance challenged. This will be a little bit of a strengthener for our feet. So what'll happen is let's put our weight into our right leg. And well, you can do this, actually I'll do it a few times before we lift our leg. So we're just gonna be rising, we've done this before. We'll lift our heels and rise up onto the balls of our feet. And try to keep, the whole ball of the foot down, all 10 toes down, and then rise up as high as you can. All right, so that'll be the challenge. We're gonna try not to roll to one side or the other. And so now let's do that on the right leg, but this time we're gonna keep our left leg sort of bent, so it just doesn't touch the ground. Doesn't matter how high you lift it, but just keep it off. And again, if you need to have a wall, that's fine. So when you're ready, roll up onto the ball of that foot. It becomes more challenging when it's just one foot, and then lower down. And then rise up. And then lower down. And then rise up. So if it's helpful, if this gives you a little more stability, just to hold on to the wall when you're doing this, it's great. And then lower down. Keep the big toe grounded, all toes grounded. And lower down. So and when you're doing this with one leg, so a couple more times, just really try to go up as high as you can. If you're going on to super high heels. Last time. Switch. When you're ready, rolling up and lower and roll up, or lift rather, and lower, and again lift and lower. A couple more times. Lost my balance there, even hold on to the wall. But just having a little touch on the wall is allowing me to go, you can't tell, this is my weak ankle actually, to go up higher. One more time. And then lower and pause. Good job. So now let's go into a tree pose, and we'll really pay attention to our feet here in our tree pose. So express it however you like, grounding on the right foot. The left foot could just be lifted a little, could be high, could be at the inner thigh. Okay, so find your tree. And maybe keep your hands on your hips for starters, if you like. Or they could be at your heart or anything else. So now let's explore lifting all 5 toes of that standing leg. Hands come to heart, or if you go to sky, but just see how it feels to lift your toes. And then lower the toes down, keeping them spread really wide. If that was a great challenge for you, you can keep the toes lifted. It just really demonstrates how much our toes really do help us in our balance. Keep lifting up through the arch of the foot, through the crown of the head. And then slowly, when you're ready, you can release the leg, bring it back in, and lower it down. And we'll do that one more time on the other side. All right, so the left foot grounds, right leg externally rotates and comes up. Okay. Gauging outer hips, lifting toes and lowering them. And then lift and keep them lifted. And pause and notice how your tree feels with your toes lifted. It's a little more precarious, or is it just fine? And then when you're ready, lower your toes down, spreading them wide so the whole base of your foot is wide. Lifting up from your arch. Practicing, keeping the arches lifted. One more breath. And then let's slowly lower back down. And pause and notice how you're feeling. All right. So let's go into some standing poses. And we're going to come in and out of it by way of warrior 3. So that's how we're going to go in. So starting at the top of our mat space. Actually, I'm going to turn this way. Starting at the top of our mat space. Into Dasana. Connecting your feet to the earth. Maybe even lifting your toes, spreading them wide, lowering them back down. Feel a nice stable base through your feet. Lifting from the pelvic floor, toning belly, lengthening through crown of head. Let's bring our hands onto our hips for starters. And then we're going to hinge forward. Bend your right leg, left leg, 90-degree angle, foot's dorsiflexed. And then start to hinge forward and kick that leg back. Go into your warrior 3 position. Draw that left hip down, inner thigh up, if you can. Lengthen from crown of head to heel. Strong legs, both of them. Take one more breath. Bend the standing leg, lower the lifted leg, rise up, warrior 1 pose. Okay, square your hips again, strong back leg, good. Arms to sky. If you didn't before, maybe raise your gaze. Look up at your thumbs. Just shifting your drishti, your focal point, changes the balance, makes it more challenging. Take one more breath. Good. And then let's straighten the leg, rise up. Plant your back foot, open up into warrior two pose. Good. Nice. Now let's explore the ankle here. So this is sometimes, we're gonna keep our foot neutral. Lift your toes and ground the big toe down. Good, and notice how that feels. And then see if you can ground the pinky toe side down and lift the arch of the big foot. This is what we really strive for in this posture. We really want to ground the pinky toe side of the foot down. So actually, let's do that one more time. So hinge forward, and just to take a little pressure off the foot, come forward into a modified side angle. So be in your modified side angle for a moment. The left hand can stay on the hip. And then lift the pinky toe side of the foot. So you're rolling to the big toe side. Noticing how that feels. And then ground the big toe, the pinky toe side down. Good, and breathe. And now maybe take your fullest expression. And feel that grounding the outside edge of the foot. You know, maybe then you're able to really lift your arch a little bit more. Feel how the muscles on the toes and the outside edge of the foot maybe connect into the calf. Take another breath or two. Good, nice. And then from here, keep your foot where it is. Nice stable legs, rise up, warrior two. Good, beautiful, and breathe. Knee over the ankle. Gaze down the middle finger of your right hand. Nice, nice, nice. And now, keep the four toes down, lift your big toe. Lower the big toe, lift the four toes. Do that a few times, noticing how that feels, how that changes the stability of the posture, how it affects the muscles in your feet into the leg. And then find that neutral place. Good. Lower the left hand to the left hamstring, reach that right arm up to the sky and reverse the warrior. Maybe lunge a little deeper, maybe let the knee go past the ankle. Keeping the pinky toe side of the left foot grounded down. One more breath. Rising back up through your warrior two. Straighten the right leg, bring your hands onto your hips, pivot your feet. Let's go back into our pyramid pose like we were before. So I've stepped in with my back leg. I changed the angle of my back foot a little bit. I'm squaring my hips. Good. Hinge forward again. Getting a nice stretch in the back leg, softening the front leg as much as you need to. Maybe lowering torso to hip height. And then soften your front knee, put all the weight into the right leg, pick up the left leg, back through our warrior three pose. And then slowly lower the left foot to meet the right, come up to standing. Good job. All right, let's do that on the other side. So at the top of our mat space, connect your feet to the earth, maybe explore the feet, do that flipping of the toes if that feels comfortable for you, lifting all toes, spreading them wide, grounding your feet. From here, hands come back onto the hips. So we're going into our modified Virabhadrasana 3 on the left side. So shift weight to left foot, pick up the right leg. Hinge forward, hinge forward. When your torso is in line with your hips, extend that right leg out. Activate the outer hips and draw that right outer hip down, right inner thigh up. Bend the knee, lower the foot, Virabhadrasana 1. So maybe adjusting your stance, arms to sky. Good. Maybe lifting gaze, looking up, your thumbs, interlacing your hands or just keeping palms together. Strong back leg. And then rising up, even bringing that front leg towards straighter. As you plant your back foot, open up your hips and torso to the side, warrior 2. Good. Knee over the ankle, back leg active. Let's find your warrior 2 for a moment. And let's even do our toe drills right now before we even go on. So as you're here, gazing down the middle finger of your left hand, lift your big toe, 4 toes down. Switch. And as you're doing this, now maybe we're getting a little bit more adept at not rolling out or rolling in. Can you notice that? Bring some awareness about that. And then lift lower all 5 toes down. And then we're going to play with the back foot. So let's hinge forward into our side angle. That way a little pressure is off the foot. Okay, so you're in your modified side angle. Lift roll onto the big toe side of your left foot. Sorry, your right foot. And then roll down to that pinky toe side of the foot. Noticing the difference, right? Just feel there's a lot more engagement and stability in the back of the leg when we ground that big toe down. Keep it there. And then develop your side angle. Right arm to sky or overhead. Good, keep grounding that pinky toe side of the foot down. Feel the engagement of the outer and inner leg. One more breath. Good. And then rise up back to your warrior 2. Reversing your warrior and even lunging a little deeper with your left leg. Let that knee go past the ankle if you can, but keeping the right pinky toe side down. Windmilling back up to warrior 2. Straighten the left leg. Bring your hands onto your hips, steering your hips to the left foot, reducing the stance and maybe the angle of the back foot for pyramid. Keep the back heel grounded, even if you need to soften the front knee, hinging forward, leading with your heart, taking a pyramid, a modified pyramid. Now put all the weight into the left foot, even softening the knee. Pick up the right leg, Virabhadrasana 3. One more breath. And then lower right leg to meet the left, rising up, Samastitihi. Take a few sun breaths here. Big inhale. And exhale it out. And again, big inhale. And exhale it out. And one more. And exhale. Nice. So let's return to the mat, but let's get down by way of a squat. So I'd like us to try a tiptoe squat. I know this might not be for everyone, so let's see what happens. Let's just make our way down. So you just come onto your knees and keep the toes curled under. This in itself could be a really good stretch for the tops of your feet, for your feet. Keeping the big toe, all the 10 toes curled under, and particularly the smaller toes that they may have a hard time curling under, so see if you can give them some help. And keep the toes going forward, and the knees or the ankles from dropping in. So this could be a really good stretch, and you may even have to reach back and kind of lengthen through the big toes. And notice how that feels. And this could be even slightly uncomfortable. But as long as it feels, it's okay, you'll get used to it if it feels like it's something that's helpful for you. Good for plantar fasciitis. It's really nice to stretch the soles of the feet. Good. Now that's, one thing you can do. You can stay there, but if you'd like to challenge it a little bit more, you could lift the knees and then, keep the balls of the feet lifted, or, the heels lifted rather, and then let your knees go apart and your heels come together. And so you're in this tiptoe squat. You can stay here with a little support wherever it is, or maybe you can let your hands come onto your knees gently, and then maybe to your heart. Take one more breath, and then we'll slowly lower down, bring the knees together, the hips back on the earth, and then extend the legs. If you can just shake that out. Maybe he's doing some rotations right here. We can do that when we're on our backs later, but that might feel nice now. Good. We'll take a little forward fold here. So if you still have your strap handy, you might want to use your strap for your Ardhanu Shirsasana. We'll take a little forward fold. Right. And so when you're ready, and later this week we can even do some other things. Like a lot of times I will work with our feet by bringing fingers between the toes. That's really nice, adding flexion and extension to the feet. So that's really a nice awakener, and even a ball massage. So maybe later this week, bring a ball to class, any kind of ball, like a like a tennis ball, or even a racquetball will be a little harder, but then maybe, you might have some massage balls for, myofascial or for yoga. So some of those balls are maybe a little softer. So maybe you can have, if you have one of those. But for now, we'll just bring our foot toward our inner thigh, just like we do in tree pose. Noticing maybe where that foot is in relation to how you typically do your tree in balance, and notice that. Drawing the heel against the inner thigh against the heel. Good. And if you like, you can use your strap and bring it against the heel of the extended leg. Keep that foot in a nice, gentle dorsiflexion. And then lengthen through the crown of your head, hinging from your hips, leading into the fold with your heart. And see where you'd like to hold on with your strap, your hands, your yogi toe lock, where the left pointer and middle finger go between the second and big toe and wrap around the outside of the big toe. Breathe here. Take another breath or two. And then when you're ready, you can look up towards your toes and then rise up with length. Use the right hand to bring that right knee up to the sky. We'll take a gentle twist. We didn't do a lot of twisting today, so nice and gentle. Separate the foot between the extended leg by like a fist distance. Hold that knee up to the sky. Reach left hand towards left foot, and then wrap the elbow crease around the knee, letting the right hand come behind you. And keep the torso long, both sits bones grounded. The left foot still gently dorsiflexed and pressing down as you start to rotate to the right. And then slowly unwind, extending the right leg. Bringing that left leg in, going right to the other side. Using the strap if you like, getting long, and then hinging forward and breathing. Slowly look toward your toes, rising up. Bringing the left knee up towards the sky. Reaching forward with your right arm, wrapping the elbow crease around the knee, lengthening the torso and gently rotating to the left. Keeping your right leg grounded. Maybe looking as far back as you can to get some rotation in your neck. Taking one more breath here. And then let's slowly unwind, extending both legs. Making sure you've got enough mat behind you here. And we'll roll down with either bent or straight legs, up to you. Start to draw the navel in and roll down onto your back. And take a moment and notice how you're feeling now. Take a big inhale and exhale it out with a sigh. One more breath, big inhale. And exhale it out as you let your feet drop out to the sides. Ground each half of your pelvis. Extend your arms by your sides. Palms up. Broad across your collarbones. Grounding through the back of your head. Softening your jaw, your eyes, your breath. Resting here as we integrate the work that we just did. Restore our vital energy and absorb the Shanti, the peace of yoga. You're right where you need to be, on your path, guided, in just the right place for you today. Many times on my journey, I stopped short, convinced I would never find the place I was trying to find, only to discover that it was right in front of me all the time. I had gone there instinctively, gone right where I needed to go, right where I was headed. There's a part of us that knows where we need to be and understands where we really want to go. There's a place in us that has a map, even if our eyes and conscious mind can't see it, can't figure it out, or aren't certain it's there. If you're spinning in circles, feeling lost and confused, trying to figure out where you need to be, and not all that certain where you're going, stop, breathe deeply, look around. You're right where you need to be. Maybe you've been there all along. So allow your breath to deepen. Gently rock your head from side to side. Bring movement to fingers and toes. Let me sweep arms overhead, reaching up through fingers and down through toes, taking a big stretch. And sweeping your arms by your sides, maybe giving your legs a squeeze. And then you can release and roll to right side with bent or straight legs. And when you're ready, use the right elbow and left hand to rise up to a comfortable seat, connecting sits bones to earth, lengthening through crown of head and drawing your hands together in front of your heart in gratitude. And then we'll seal our practice by joining our voices in the sound of Om. The divine light in me honors the divine light in you. Namaste.